Welcome, everybody, to FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. This is the Friday Night Blitz, and I'm your host, Rob Fedoff, also known as RPT. You can find me on X at PFedoff. This is episode 135, but first things first, head over to our website at fanstreamsports.com for all additional podcast information. If you have an Apple device or an Android device, please feel free to download the FanStream Sports app. And please feel free to share that with your friends and family. Before the main topic of this podcast, I just want to note, as you see right down here, that is the Notre Dame 2024 football schedule. So if you get bored or tired of me talking and just want to look at the schedule for the upcoming season, there it is right there, the 2024 football schedule for Notre Dame. I want to thank my cousin, Jeff Fedoff, for putting that together. But there's the schedule right there. So the main topic here is the women's basketball team. It's been a very big news for the women's team. Great news, that is, in the last 2 days. I was kind of waiting to see before I did this podcast to see where they stood in the portal with actually getting players. Because you always heard me bitch and complain about how we need more of an inside presence. We got that in the last 2 days. This is big news for this program as they go into the 2024-2025 season. And this is the topic for this podcast here, the Notre Dame women's team 2024-2025 season, and the two big portal players that they added. This is huge for the program right now, as they can make a legit run for the 2025 national title. So let's just first go and do a quick replay of how the season ended. It wasn't the way we wanted to end. Obviously, you always want to make that Final Four, win a national title, but I predicted them to be an Elite Eight team. That did not happen. They just missed that. They got to the Sweet 16. Heartbreaking loss to Oregon State, 70-65. They just cannot hit a shot at the end. They had many chances to they ended up losing by 5 points. They were up by 2, I think, with about 5 minutes to go. And there was multiple chances to extend the lead to 5 or 6. Just couldn't do it. Hats off to Oregon State. They had that inside game that we just couldn't match at times, and we just couldn't hit the shots. At the end, maybe it was fatigue, because if we had a full deck and not just 6 players, yes, we dressed 8. One of those is a walk-on who will never play. Becky Benoit, she was a grad transfer from Pepperdine. She was not going to play either unless someone fouled out. But we are more or less with 6 players. And to be the ACC tournament champions with 6 players, finished the season 28-7, ranked 11th in the AP poll. Tremendous job by Coach Ivey and staff at the end to do all that with only 6 players for the most part. So now what I'm going to do, this is going to be a very methodical podcast, because I want to lay out why I think the additions and subtractions, especially for the last 2 days, is really going to help this program and everybody that's coming back to say, hey, they got a chance to really make a run in 2025. So first things first, let's go who will not be on the team next year. Anna DeWolf, who was the grad transfer last year, she's out of eligibility. So obviously she cannot play. 5'6" guard. She averaged 9 points a game, 3 assists, shot 37% from three-point land, and was about an 80% free throw shooter. So a great shooter. She was a solid addition to the program last year. However, she was limited athletically unless she was wide open for a shot. She would knock down that 3 consistently, but she could not create her own shot. She really didn't move the needle as a go-to player to win you a game. So she did a great job for just 1 year at Notre Dame. She did what she had to do, but this I do not think will be a big loss to Notre Dame going forward. For these next 2 players, I do not believe they have, even though it listed them as a junior, it also listed them as a grad transfer. I do not think they have any eligibility left. So I do not think they would be at Notre Dame next year anyway. But Jenna Brown, grad transfer from Stanford, she actually played in 27 games in 2023. She did not play in any games this year. So I do not think that's a big loss as well. She was actually a 5-star recruit when she was at Stanford, but I think she was plagued by injuries throughout her career. But she did somewhat of a contribution in 2023. She averaged she only averaged 2 points per game, played in those 27 games, but did not play in any game last year at all. So that's not a big loss either. Becky Benoit, grad transfer from Pepperdine. I do not believe she has any eligibility also. She is 6'2" forward. She averaged 3 points per game this year and only played in 16 games. As I mentioned earlier, when we were down to 6 players, we more or less just played 6 players. Did not play the walk-on. I think her name's Sarah Sinogle. And Becky Benoit did not see any action during that time. If she did, it was very limited action. So that just shows you, I'm sure she's a great person, great student, but it really took dire straits to get her to play any basketball games this year. I do not think this will be a big loss. Also, what we thought, I got ahead of myself there. Nat Marshall, solid player for Notre Dame. She's a graduate student. I thought until it now kind of makes more sense now. Before we had the 2 portal additions from today and yesterday, she was a 6'4" forward. She could play center too. 5 points per game, 4 rebounds. She entered the portal, and at first I thought before we knew the information about the transfers, I thought with Kylie Watson tearing her ACL, we're really limited with height and depth in the inside game. I thought she would at least come back because I don't know if Kylie Watson's going to even return next year. Maybe she sits out the entire year as a redshirt to rehab that knee. She will not be ready for the first game of the season. If anything, she enters the second part of the season in 2025, where she just plays half the year. That's to be determined. But I thought with that scenario there, Nat Marshall would be back regardless. No, she has graduated from Notre Dame. I think she actually has 2 degrees. She's going to be play for Miami of Florida for the Hurricanes. And, I wish her the best of luck. I see why she's probably moving on. She's got the 2 degrees, very smart. She's played 4 years at Notre Dame. There's really not much for her to prove at Notre Dame. And I think she'll probably have more of a chance to play a lot more at Miami. So Nat Marshall will not be a member of Notre Dame's team. This person we thought would not be a part of the team. They entered the portal. KK Bransford, sophomore. She was Miss Ohio basketball in 2022. To me, she's underachieved so far. She entered the portal, but then she came back to Notre Dame. So she'll be part of this Notre Dame team for the 2024-2025 season. She played in 33 games, 7 points, 4 rebounds was her average, but she needs to improve dramatically. She was a McDonald's All-American, Miss Ohio basketball, but I do not see that right now. She just seems out of shape at times, not fluid. She has had her moments, but she's got to step it up for her junior season is what I'm trying to say. So now we get into who's going to be coming back or coming to Notre Dame. And it was still up in the air whether Maddie Westfeld would choose to have her COVID year. So even though she was a 4-year player, she began her career in 2020, 2021. If you began your career, then you can have an extra year because of that COVID year. And it was still, like I said, to be determined whether she would come back or even go to the portal, go to another team. She will come back for a 5th season at Notre Dame. This was huge. This was the first big news for Notre Dame. This was last month. 6'3" forward, had her best year, especially at the end. She really stepped it up at the end. Averaged 14 points a game, 9 rebounds a game. So Maddie Westfeld will be back. The only incoming recruit coming in, but this is the big one, Kate Koval or Koval, will determine what the exact pronunciation is as we get into the 2024-2025 season. But I'm going to say Koval. Kate Koval, McDonald's All-American, 6'5", finally have a true center right there. That's huge right there. The number 5 overall recruit in the nation and the number 1 post player, center, whatever you want to call it, in the nation is her ranking. So we're getting one of the best players, if not the best center, to come in Kate Koval. And that was the so-called big news last year when we signed her. But as I said yesterday, the news just kept getting better. So first part right here, Liza Carlin. She is a 6'2" forward, could play center as well. She was the 15th overall. She had the 15th overall ranking. So she entered her name in the portal. Just a little bit of backstory. She went to Marquette and graduated from Marquette, but her coach, Megan Duffy, who's a Notre Dame graduate, and she went to Virginia Tech. So once her coach left, she entered the portal, and she was ranked the 15th overall portal player for women's college basketball. We were able to get her. Marquette was a solid team last year as well. They went 23-9. Ironically, they lost to Ole Miss at Notre Dame in the first round of the NCAA tournament this year. And here, just to read off, this is what we're getting. 6'2" forward, can play center as well. First team all Big East. And Big East, that's where UConn plays too. So she's played against some quality competition. Here's what I like right here. Finally, some inside presence to go along with the big-time recruit Kate Coble. 18 points, 8 rebounds. She had 10 double-doubles last year. She shoots 50% from the field, 36% from three, too. She, like I said before, not just an inside game, she has an outside game, too. And she shot 82% from the free throw line. I always like that. I always said to get in that 80, 90% range, that's what I like to see. But Liza Carlin, transfer from Marquette. We got her yesterday. That is a huge transfer right there because even though we lost Nat Marshall, Kylie Watson, even though I've been a big critic of hers, she did play very good defense at the end of last year, tore her ACL, but as an offensive threat, she's just not there. And to get Liza Carlin along with Kate Coble, this is huge. And the news just got better today. I think I'm pronouncing this right. I hope I am, but Leah-Tu King, I believe, yeah. Leah-Tu King, she was ranked the 16th best transfer portal prospect currently, and she's another inside presence that we desperately need. I know it seems kind of undersized. She's only 6 foot. She is a forward, but here's the key. Charles Barkley was not the biggest of guys, but he battled with the best inside. He knew his game was not just outside game, it was inside as well. She gets, and here's the thing to back up that point about Leah-Tu King. She has not attempted a 3-point shot at all. Despite the transfers that we're getting in, it's still a very heavy guard related team is what I'm trying to say. We still have too many guards, I think, but at the same time with these additions, it'll help. With Leah-Tu King, I already know, even though she's only 6 foot, she's going to battle inside with tenacity. And also, she's never attempted a 3-point shot. So she's not really looking to have that outside game, which leads me to believe her total focus is on that inside game. Better yet, she was at Pitt. Pitt was not the greatest team. They were probably I think they were the worst ACC team. But having said that, she's the ACC's most improved player. And here's her stats right now. 19 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 2 assists a game, 2 steals a game, first team all ACC. She's an ACC 2-time academic on the ACC academic team. She's been on that twice. She averaged 35 minutes a game last year, 52% from the field goal percentage wise, 71% free throw. I like to see that increase in that 80, 90% range. So having said that, though, this is a great Leah-Tu King. Cannot say enough. A little bit. I know you think, well, inside game 6'2" at least. She's geared to play in the inside game, like a Charles Barkley. He wasn't the biggest of guy, but man, he battled inside. He battled inside is what I'm trying to say. I think Leah-Tu King can be that same presence for us. Great pickup there. So having said that, with the 2 additions, like I said, it's fairly new news is what Liza Carlin from Marquette, Leah-Tu King from Pittsburgh. So what do we have coming back? I want to give a brief scenario for that right now, too. I told you this is going to be a very methodical process to relay my point that this team's going to compete next year. So Kylie Watson, she'll be a senior next year, 6'5". She was our only inside presence this year, and it wasn't much offensively. Whether she comes back for the next year with her, she will not come back. At the earliest she comes back is midway through the season next year. And I got to think she probably redshirts. But having said that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players coming back next year. If you take away Kylie Watson, it's 7. That's pretty damn good right there. And if you add in the Kate Coble, the McDonald's All-American, and the 2 transfers we just got, if you include Kylie Watson, it's 11. If you do not include Kylie Watson, it's 10. That's a hell of a lot better than the 6 we had to end the season last year. And if you want to get technical, our walk-on, it's 11 or 12. But what I'm trying to say, we got tons of players coming back with experience, great additions in the transfers. But back to Kylie Watson, she'll be a 6'5" senior. Uh, we'll see how that goes. But I just feel a lot better now with the transfers, even if Kylie Watson does not come back. Maddie Westfeld, I said before, fifth-year senior, 14 points, 9 rebounds. Sonia Citron, shooting guard. She'll be a senior, 17.6 rebounds. All-American, all-everything. Hannah Hidalgo, she'll be a sophomore next year. 23 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 steals per game. I repeat, 23 points a game, 6 rebounds a game, 6 assists a game, 5 steals a game. Incredible player. Olivia Miles, our best player last year in 2023, who tore her ACL. She sat out the entire year. She'll be coming back. That combo with Hannah Hidalgo, granted, they got to get a chemistry going. I'm sure that'll take some time to feel out. That's going to be quite a how can I say this? This will be quite a chore for opposing teams to try to stop that 2 point guard combo. But prior to her injury, 14 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Cass Prosper, she was a McDonald's All-American too out of Canada. Last year, she only played in 5 games, got hurt, 8 points, 4 rebounds, 6'2" guard. Very talented player, but needs to fine-tune her skills. Still very raw. I said she's from Canada. I don't know if this is just Canada athletes, but Chase Claypool, who we had a solid receiver for Notre Dame, he's kind of had some bumps and bruises in his NFL career. The Steelers, then he got traded to the Bears, then he got traded to the Dolphins. Now he's with the Bills. But anyway, as good of a player as Chase was, he would just fall down constantly at times. And Cass Prosper is the same way at Notre Dame, where she's kind of awkward, but is falling down way too much. I don't know if it's a Canadian thing or what, but the 2 well-known Canadian athletes that we've had, and Cass Prosper and Chase Claypool, they fall down too much. That's got to change. Emma Risch, she'll be a sophomore last year. She was a pretty hyped up recruit as well as a freshman. However, 6'1" guard. She only played in 4 games she averaged 4 points a game, 3 rebounds, only played in 7 games before she had that hip injury. Hopefully she's back and healthy. That's another great player coming back also. KK Bransford, I mentioned before. She entered the portal, but then she came back. To me, she's been a disappointment so far, but I'm pulling for her. 7 points, 4 rebounds last year, played in 33 games. Former Miss Ohio basketball in 2022 in Cincinnati. She's got to get it going. But as you can see here, with everybody that's coming back, everybody that's coming in, this team can now make a run. I think Coach Ivey's more or less got to the point where I'm tired of this shit where her predecessor is one of my biggest so-called criticism, even though I love Muffet McGraw. The 2 years that she won a national title, she had that inside presence. Ruth Riley in 2001. Jessica Shepard in 2018, who was a transfer where she had to go out and get. I just don't think consistently Muffet McGraw would recruit that inside game. And I think Coach Ivey has figured it out. It's still size matters in basketball. It's just, even though it's more of a perimeter game now, size still matters in basketball, both men and women. And I just think Coach Ivey said, I'm tired of this shit. I'm going out. I'm getting two bigs, because who knows if Kylie Watson's back. For us to make a run to compete with even though I consider us a high-end team, for us to win, go to the final, get back to the Final Four, win a title, we got to have that inside presence. What else here? Now, having said all this great news too, we'll see how the chemistry works, because as I mentioned earlier, Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, I know they've been practicing together last year, because Olivia probably could have came back, but they didn't want to risk another injury. And she was going all out and really helping out Hannah Hidalgo during those practices. We'll see once they get into the games how that chemistry works. And with the 2 transfers of Leah Tu King, and I look at my notes again because it's so new, this news here, and Liza Carlin, and with Kate Koval, the McDonald's All-American coming in, how does this chemistry work? Because you can have all the great players in the world, but if the chemistry's not there, you're not going to go far into the tournament or have a successful season. So that's to be determined. But I really have, especially the way the season ended last year, I have more faith in Coach Ivy and staff now. What they did with just 6 players at the end, I have much more confidence in this staff right now. What else can I say here? But having said that, and also the key is too, not just the chemistry, but to stay healthy. And that's what's still concerning. The last 2 years, we just had some major injuries with Olivia Miles, Dara Mabry, Kylie Watson last year, Emma Risch, Cass Prosper. I'm hoping how do you say this? The athletic trainer. I don't know who it is, but I hope they really take it to heart to make sure the 2024, 2025. I know injuries are sometimes inevitable, but maybe there's just not something being done with the training or the stamina, endurance, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully that is addressed in the off season, because I think, as I said earlier, Coach Ivy, she's tired of the shit with the inside game. She's probably still tired of the shit with the injuries as well. So hopefully that gets worked out too. But having said that, if the chemistry works out with these additions that we have, the injuries stay in check, this team can compete with the SCs, both SCs, South Carolina and USC. USC has had a great portal season as well, to great players to add to Juju Watkins, the great freshman last year. But having said that, I think USC and SC, South Carolina, the other SC, they have probably better athletes than Notre Dame's team, but we got the better basketball players. I think the better basketball players are going to win. I'm not going to say we're going to win it, but I think if you have the better basketball players, you have a better chance to win a national title. Not all the time, but you can have all the greatest athletes in the world, but if they're not solid basketball players, solid football players, baseball players, I don't think you're going to go far and win a title. I think that's where we have a little bit of edge right now. Yes, they have more athletic talent, but we got the better basketball players, at least on paper right now, and for what I've seen last year. So I can't say enough. This is great news for the Notre Dame women's basketball team. This has been like a little pre-preview to the 2024-2025 season. But this right now, I think, is probably going to be the team going forward. Maybe we add another portal kid. We shall see. But I'm probably not going to have any sort of major updates, unless there is a major update to the women's team. I would do the same thing to the men's team. It's just we've had a couple leave that are not going to move the needle either way for the Notre Dame's team. The biggest thing is Marcus Burton did enter the NBA draft. However, be calm. He can come back. What's happening right now is he's getting opinions from various outlets. And here's the thing too. I think it was on Saturday. He did not get invited. I think it's called like the training camp. It's kind of like the combine for the NFL. He did not get invited to compete in that for the NBA combine, or whatever you want to call it. That's a bad sign for him. That's a good sign for us, because if he's not getting invited to that, the NBA scouts think he needs to go back to school. And I think too, don't quote me on this or hold me to this, because with the college game now, things can change in a second. But I always thought he'd probably test the waters this year, see where he's at. But with his size, I think he's still going to be a 4-year player. Unless he starts to average 30 to 35 points a game, he's too small for NBA to really make him a first-round pick or a lottery pick. I think he's probably going to be a 4-year player. And we'll see if that happens. But I'm going to have the same thing. It's just Notre Dame hasn't really – they signed one kid. I believe he's from Princeton or Harvard. But I'll get into that in my next podcast. But I need to know a little bit more as if we sign some more players for the men's basketball team. But what I'm trying to say, to be determined for the 2024-2025 men's basketball team preview. But it's great news for the women's team right now. I cannot be happier. The Irish Nation, you better get excited right now. This is some great news. So thank you so much for joining me for episode 135. And as always, go Irish.